What a difference 1 year makes. The Detroit Lions this time last year, where I want to say after 8 games, they were 2-6, and we have flipped that record this year being at 6-2, and the Detroit Lions are in the driver's seat in the NFC North. Not only that, we have the second overall seed in the NFC. No help from the Dallas Cowboys yesterday as expected, but the Seattle Seahawks loss to the Baltimore Ravens in worse fashion than ours kept us in the second seed in the NFC, and the Detroit Lions have a huge opportunity to increase that this Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers. It's going to be a matchup, and right now they're favored by 1.5. The last time the Chargers do lead the series, I want to say 7-5, and I want to say the last time we played them, we beat them, but I'm not too sure about that. But we haven't beat this current iteration of the Los Angeles Chargers. We had a big game ahead. Right now, the Chargers are 2-4. They play tonight on Monday Night Football with an opportunity to be 3-4 heading into that game against the Detroit Lions. But last year, we're talking about draft, and some of y'all were talking about Jalen Carter and quarterbacks and Christian Gonzalez and all these other guys that we that were drafted in the 2023 NFL Draft. And this year, we're talking about playoff season. Playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. That is correct. Now, on the other hand, I was talking about the playoffs at 1-6. I got receipts. Matter of fact, I think I'll link that video of me talking about the playoffs in this video here, so you guys can go fact check that. But the Detroit Lions right now are sitting in a great position as we head to Week 10 against the Los Angeles Chargers. Here is a current look at the playoff picture when it comes to the NFC and AFC as well. Right now, in the driver's seat, the Eagles and Chiefs lead their respective conferences at number 1. And for us, number 2 is where we are right now. Now, this time last year, we were like the 15th or 16th seed, and we ended the season the 8th seed, just a half game out of the playoffs. The Seattle Seahawks, with a loss yesterday, kept us here. If they had a 1, we would have dropped down to 3. They would have moved up to 2. But instead, they lost in abysmal fashion, and they kept us where we were. The 49ers actually moved from the lower seed. I want to say they were the 6th seed. They moved up with that Seattle loss into number 3. And the Saints got a win yesterday and take this place from the Falcons, going from outside the playoffs to inside the playoffs with a win yesterday. Remember, all division leaders go. All division leaders are 1-4 based on their record, and then the wild card version comes, or teams come after that. Seattle drops from division lead to wild card team with that loss, dropping down to the 5th seed. The Dallas Cowboys drop down to the 7th seed, and the Minnesota Vikings are the 7th seed in the NFC. Right now, if the playoffs ended today, we would be playing the Minnesota Vikings. On the bubble, the Washington Commanders, Atlanta Falcons, who gave up the division lead with the loss yesterday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have lost 4 in a row, starting with the Detroit Lions. Crazy. The Packers got a win yesterday. They're number 11. The LA Rams, who I thought was going to be the 7th seed. Right now, Matthew Stafford's out. I don't know how long he's going to be out. Their season might just be done. The Giants are a wrap. Daniel Jones out for the year. The Chicago Bears got a loss yesterday, and the Carolina Panthers right now 1-7. And the number 1 pick in the NFL draft at this point is the Arizona Cardinals. So right now, the Detroit Lions would host the Minnesota Vikings at the 7th seed. So how important is this Charger game? This Charger game is phenomenally important. Now, obviously, in-division games are the most important. Then it's conference games. And then the outer conference games. The AFC games don't mean as much because the tiebreakers, like last year was a perfect example. We lost the head-to-head to the Seattle Seahawks, and that kept us out the playoffs. That was outside of our division, but inside of our conference, which literally was the difference between the 7th and the 8th seed, right? So we wind up having the 7th seed. But the Charger game is important for another reason. The Minnesota Vikings. I know you guys are, I'm not scared of the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not scared of them either, but we have to account for the fact that they're in our division, and we still have not played them at all. So the last 3 games are Minnesota, on the road, Dallas on the road, and then we end hosting Minnesota. Now, we do know Kirk is not going to be there. Josh Dobbs is probably going to be. We're going to get a combination of between him and their rookie quarterback as well. But right now, they've won 4 in a row. They won 4 in a row. So they're winning games the same way we were winning games last year. And that's all that matters. It doesn't matter who's playing right now. And we can say one thing or another, but the Minnesota Vikings are, and Dan Campbell said it today in his press conference, like they're trying to win games. So we have to keep our foot on the gas when it comes to securing this division. It might come down. We could have it wrapped up going into week 16, or we could be fighting for playoff seeding or division title at that point. That's going to be curious to see how these next 6 weeks are going to play out. But the Minnesota Vikings, they play the Saints, I believe, coming up, and the Detroit Lions play the Chargers. So if we get a win against the Chargers, you're talking about a 1-game lead with a Minnesota loss, and a Minnesota win and a Detroit loss cuts this division race down to 1 game. A Minnesota loss and a Detroit win moves this to 3 games. So that's how important 1 game is in the National Football League. Again, we've seen it last year. That 1 game kept us out the playoffs, and it wasn't even a full game. It was a tiebreaker. We had the same record, but we lost on a tiebreaker of the head-to-head. So these are very important. Lions have an opportunity to keep the pace on for the division. I mean, a Minnesota Viking win and the Detroit Lions win keeps this at 2 games. And again, the worst case scenario would be a Vikings win and a Lions loss. Now, again, it's going to probably come. A lot of stuff can happen in those 6 games in between now and the Detroit Lions meeting the Minnesota Vikings for the first time. When we do, the Chicago series will be over. The Green Bay Packer series will be over. As a matter of fact, one of our 3 games for the month of November is the Green Bay Packers. So that'll be wrapped up. So it's going to be curious. Our next 3 games are Chargers, Bears, and Packers on Thanksgiving. We have 3 games this month, and I believe we have 3 games this month, 4 next month, and then 2 the very first week in January. So this is going to be interesting. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How do you feel about this right now? We do have a chance to get the number 1 seed, but it's going to take a lot of help. We need the Eagles to start losing. They're off, and then they come back and play the Chiefs. So with a win, if the Lions were to get a win in week 10, they beat the Chargers, right? Let's say we beat the Chargers and we beat the Chicago Bears on the 19th. That puts us at 8-2. The Eagles are off coming up. Then they play the Kansas City Chiefs. That's 8-2. I'm not sure who gets the tiebreaker at that point if both teams are 8-2, but it is a good chance that we're going into week 10, 11, 12, that by week 12, the Detroit Lions will have played the Chargers, Bears, and Packers. With the right combination of losses by the Eagles, we could have the number 1 seed heading into the month of December, and we would just have to keep hold of it. So that's how important these games are. Playing meaningful football in December is what this is all about. And we're playing it right here in November. These next 3 games are going to be important. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Right now, Detroit Lions are in the driver's seat in the NFC North. All they have to do is keep winning. And we are within reach of the number 1 seed. And I would love to get that because all roads would go through Detroit. If we wind up with the number 2 seed, then that means that we have an outside chance to host the NFC title game. Like, this stuff is important. Number 1, number 2, got to get it because number 1 or number 2, I mean, even if you're like the 4th seed, I want to say you can still host the game. But if the Detroit Lions are the 2nd seed, I love this. If you don't know, I love this. Even like I said, last year, y'all talking about Jalen Carter, I'm talking about playoffs. I love this time of year. All the different scenarios, all the different ways teams can fall out and make it, and different kind of scenarios of how the Detroit Lions, they end up with the 2nd seed, okay? They would host a wild card. Then they would host the divisional round, being the 2nd seed. Then they would have to go on the road to the 1st seed if the 1st seed wins their divisional matchup. If the 1st seed loses their divisional matchup, the number 2 seed, if they win their first 2 games, would host the NFC title game. But you know how you just cut all that out? You win and you get the 1st seed. So this thing could come down, honestly. The Eagles have quite the stretch. But they've beat both the teams, the Miami Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys. They got the Buffalo Bills. They have the Chiefs coming up. So right now, the Eagles are on a roll, and they get to sit no matter what happens in week 10. They don't move. We will not move up even with the win, because the Eagles are off. So love this type of year. Let me know what you think in the comments below. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.